think your popularity is also necessary because, let's be honest, to be a racing driver, you need, of course, talent, but sometimes you need also to have a certain budget. So many race fans will be looking at the races and they will be thinking, oh, come on, I cannot, work in the racing environment because I don't have the environment, the money to get into it. But when they see your work, those fans may be the next generation of
for sure.
stewards, race directors, safety delegates.
In the football match, they are players and also they are referees.
Exactly, and
It's
the way to show what they're doing is what we're doing. We talk to you and we let them show, even though it's not usually seen, how cool that job also is. So first of all, I wanted to ask both of you, what is your task during a race weekend, which of course I know that it doesn't start with the Friday or Saturday, it starts before that and it extends beyond Sunday as well. So why don't you run us through a little bit of that task?
We normally start to work 2 weeks before the races, especially speaking about the race or the meeting in general with the promoter and also with the clerk of the course or the staff of the circuit, in order to prepare all the things before the races, as a briefing for the drivers, meeting with local marshals, local race control people. Probably our hard work is during the Sunday and Saturday, no? During
A lot of activities. That means the qualifying, later the race, the start of the race, to maintain the order in the race. That means in case of it's necessary to use the safety car, the red flags. That means there are a lot of things in the same race. That means it's important to stay there. And for us, the preparation of the things is 2 or 3 days before, because when you arrive, if you arrive just now, it's too late to solve the problems. And for the circuit, need to know normally which is the rules. We are the same of, maybe the example is not good, but as a Taliban of the race is to maintain the order, this championship in all the circuits. This is the idea of the race director. The race director is only who maintain the same discipline in all the races to apply the same rule. Because when you arrive without race director, the problem is this: in one race, that is a penalty, and other is not penalty. We maintain the same consistency during all the championship,
all the session. No?
And this is what people sometimes don't see, because there has to be someone who makes sure that things are done in the same way, and that's how, let's say, from the other side, as a team and as a driver, let me be a little bit cheeky, you know how far you can push the envelope, because you know that the things are going to be consistent, because if they are not, then you don't know what you can do and what you cannot do. And we know that drivers and teams, they like to push things as much as they can, don't they?
Normally because the regulations permit a lot of interpretations.
Exactly.
When you were in front of the situation, they are the same crazy people. That means always the solution at the end will be the same. Because it's the same interpretation for the same crazy people. That means is this, but believe me, it's not a crazy people. We stay in the race direction, conscious about the situation,
focusing on the race, focusing on the session.
It's important to maintain the safety in all moments. When you, when Luis show safety car or show yellow flags or double yellow flags, so that is only with the idea of the safety to the drivers and also to the marshals. For us, the marshal is an important element in the races, because without marshals, nothing will be possible.
Absolutely.
We are the first step, no? Before the steward's decision, but the role as a race director is completely different, as Xavi said. Is only focusing on the safety of the drivers, safety of the teams, marshal around the track, and yes, I think this is the only purpose for a race director.
Exactly.
A good job for a race director.
And as I was saying before, you've seen all sorts of situations in motorsport, of course. But I want to ask you, what would you say, if you can remember it? It doesn't have to be the most difficult, which is my question. It would be, what has been the most difficult situation that you've had to deal with? If it's not the most, because you may not be sure, but give me an example of, a tricky situation that you've had. If it's the most difficult, better, because we want to see what is the biggest challenge that you've had in a racetrack.
Probably, I think for a race director, it's very challenging when you don't have means. No, when you don't have means on the track, for example, like recovery car, Marshall, or probably the difference between circuits in the same championship, because probably you go to a circuit and you work properly and very good, and when you go to the other circuits, probably it's very hard because it's not always the same.
Let's say Barcelona and Assen have different standards.
Completely
but
different.
Our job is try to maintain the minimum standards to stay in the same level.
And to make that minimum as high as possible, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it feels like the first race was only a few hours ago, and no, you're not mistaken, that's because it was. We hope you didn't miss us too much, but welcome back to round 6 of the EUROCUP-3 Championship here at the circuit of Spa-Francorchamps. And did race 1 pack plenty of a punch for us? As it started off in these exact conditions, it looked like it was going to be a very straightforward and bone dry race for the drivers, and it had the complete opposite. Completely threw spanner in the work with the rain, and one person that had to endure those conditions was Alex Garcia. We couldn't speak to him last race, but he now joins us down trackside. Alex, how are you doing?
Kai, you were hoping that fans did not miss us too much. I did miss you quite a lot in the first race because we had a bit of a willful connection, and that stopped us from talking to you, prevented us from having a normal, let's say, race. But that's fitting, I would say, because that was anything but normal. As you can see, the weather has cleared. The sky is very nice right now. And if you had told me that it was downpouring just a few hours ago, I would have said that's not possible. But you know it's possible in Spa. It's always possible in Spa-Francorchamps. And what a first race of the not race weekend we had. That was a cracker. And I'm sure that the second one will be even better in many ways. For once, I expect it to be uninterrupted, which would be an improvement.
Yeah, indeed it was, but what a race it was indeed. Plenty of action and plenty of stories coming into this one. You know, Jesse Carrasquedo, a dominant race. He started on pole position and he dominated the whole race, lights to the red flag or the checkered flag, whatever you want to call it. But Matteo Carnaghi, he finished in second position, extending his championship lead to a lovely 30-point barrier back to his championship contender of Valerio Renicella. But one name that I feel fell victim to the conditions, Ernesto Rivera. He was looking for a great point scoring opportunity, wasn't he, Alex? And then unfortunately, with that change of tyres onto the wet tyres, just not the right call from the team there.
Exactly. It's been, let's say, a very important race for the championship, the one we've seen this morning. First of all, because we had a fantastic race start by Matteo Carnaghi, who was starting from fourth and very quickly got into second. And that was crucial, considering that we didn't have a lot of green flag time. That lets him be, as you said, with 30 points advantage ahead of this one. Of course, we don't have to, and we don't want to anticipate the events too much. But we have to start thinking that depending on how this race goes, there is a very real possibility that we might have a champion next time out in Jerez. That is, in part, due to the problems of Valerio Rinicella. As you said, he stopped, they made a choice. At that point, you have to take a gamble. They made a gamble. If it had paid off, we would have been calling them geniuses, and it just didn't. So it's one of those things. It's a 50-50 coin toss. It didn't work out for them. They have another chance to fight now. And Ernesto Rivera as well. Oh, what a shame that he's been having a very, very bad run of results. 3 results without scoring points. If my math is not failing me, he is overtaken now by Kasper Suk as well in the overall standings, which shows just how heartbreaking the past few events have been for him. For a driver who was leading the championship at one point and who was outscoring everyone else, and now we're just talking about how Mattia Colnaghi could be champion in just a few weeks in Jerez. That is how the tables can turn so quickly in EuroCup-3, because that's how tight things have been in the past few events and throughout the whole season, which goes to show you this is not a child's play. This is really drivers fighting for the futures, which is as heartbreaking as it is exciting, I have to admit.
No, and I completely agree. And you are right. Kasper Stuka has jumped up to 3rd in the championship, with Ernesto Rivera dropping down into 4th after a very unfortunate race. But race 1 is in the past. We're going to put that behind us. The red flag, let's just pretend that it didn't happen for the time being. But red flags seem to have been the story of this weekend, as it did cut qualifying 2 short just a little bit as well. A few minutes cut off the end there. And that means that it's Emerson Fittipaldi Jr. who finds himself on pole position. The Brazilian driver, we haven't seen him at the front end as much as he would have been hoping for this season, but now really is a good chance for him to prove himself.
Definitely he was quick. That was a very, very good lap. There is also something to keep in mind. This is SPA-FRANCORCHAMPS. There's a couple of sections where if you have a good slipstream, you can make a good use of that. You can take advantage of that and get a very, very quick lap. He did that better than anybody else. We have to wonder just how quick he will be on the race. And we know, and this is Spa, and this is not surprising for anybody, and even less of it, any of the drivers that are behind us, starting from pole is not necessarily the best thing here in Belgium. If you're not clear of the rivals after La Sauce just in front of me, you have a long, long run down through Eau Rouge, Radillon, Camel Straight, up to Lecombe. And at that point, if you're not too far, you may have 1 or 2 guys trying to surprise you. And we've seen that happen. We've seen Mattia Colnaghi try it this morning. He didn't quite make it, but things could change on this race too. So that's one first point that we have to look out for. First lap into Lecombe. So that's the position that Emo Fittipaldi will try to defend. And of course, a position that Mattia Colnaghi will try to attack. Because as we said before, if he's looking into the title, scoring good points today is crucial, not only for him, but especially for him.
Yeah, 100%. It's one of those where he has to try and do what Jesse Carrasquedo was able to do in the last race and just use that pole position to his advantage. You let the rest of the pack battle in behind him and just pull away from the rest of the field. But there's so many MP Motorsport cars up at that front end. Obviously, we've got Matteo Colnaghi, and in behind him, he has Valerio Rinicella. Those 2 drivers, very, very similar. Exact same average finishing position, same amount of podiums, same amount of point scoring positions. The only thing that separates the 2 drivers is Matteo Colnaghi's 4 wins to Valerio Rinicella's 1, and also those 3 pole positions. So Rinicella, do you think there's levels between the 2 drivers? Do you feel that Rinicella has to make a step up if he wants to contend for this championship?
He absolutely has to do it, not least because the clock is ticking and we just have, and I say just, but there's so much that could happen. We just have 5 races ahead of us. And all of these drivers know that when races keep going, at some point you just have to say, well, that's my last chance. And those chances are just coming through. One such guy is, of course, Emerson Fittipaldi, who's already waiting for that race to start. Of course, Valerio Rinicella is another big name that should try his best on this race. I mean, of course, every driver is going to try their best. But for sure, I can tell you that Valerio has to step it up, because he knows that if he doesn't do that enough here, next time out, there could be some bad news for him. And I say bad news, but he's had an excellent season and finishing maybe as runner-up would not be exactly a bad result. But we know that these guys, they don't like losing at anything. I can tell you that if they're just running through the paddock, they'll try to race each other on foot. So if they race each other on foot, how are they not going to race each other on track?
No, that's exactly how it is. And when we look at the qualifying sheet, one name that definitely surprises me, and it is because of post-qualifying decisions, Enzo Tarvanishko starting from last on the grid. He's all the way down at the back end of the grid. He had both of his fastest laps removed from his qualifying session, unfortunately. And it was a good first race from him. He was able to snag home a podium, but from the back of the grid, do you think he'll be even able to recover for some points finishes?
It's tricky, but we know that if you have a good start, you can get some positions, you know, you can claw them before the lassos, and you have that run up through Eau Rouge Radillon into Lecombe, and that would be a good way to get some places back. If he can have that first half a lap, and it's good enough, he may have a chance. Spa is not a place where overtaking is impossible. This is not, let's say, Assen, or of those who have better memory and think of last year, places like Zandvoort or maybe Jerez, which are a bit more narrow, a bit tighter, trickier to overtake. In Spa, if you're quick, you can do it. There's good places for overtaking. There's good places for slipstream. We have Lecombe, we have here in Lassos, we have all the area running up to Blanchimont and into the bus stop chicane. There's plenty of places for things to happen. He's been quick. He had an excellent first race. We know that the first race wasn't exactly the most normal or usual race, but that will have bolstered his confidence. And with nothing to lose, and when you start from last, there's nothing to lose, I'm sure he'll just give it a go and see how far he can get.
That's exactly what it is. He just has to have that mindset of damage limitation and making his way through the paddock, clawing back as many points as possible. But we're starting to see the team start to clear the grid. And Alex, I know you love to bet your vegetables. Race 1, we couldn't predict anything, but what are your predictions for this one?
All right, let me think about it. I think Mattia Colnaghi is still the favorite. As much as it would always be cool to see a legendary surname such as Fittipaldi winning in Spa, I would still bet for Mattia, who of course has recently had some great news in the shape of a new signing with Red Bull Junior Team for 2026. So what would be the best way to celebrate that than with the win? Especially considering that, from what we know, tomorrow he'll be traveling around to make sure that he appears in some minor race category that's racing in Italy. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's called Formula 1 or something. So that would be something to bring back home in more ways than one. So I'll take two P's for Mattia Colnaghi, let's say.
Oh, safe bet with 2 P's on Mattia Colnaghi. And one thing that was a big talking point about Assen last time round, Alex, obviously team data. That was a huge thing around Assen. None of the teams really had any data around that circuit because we hadn't raced around to there in the EuroCup-3 machinery. But SPA-FRANCORCHAMPS, especially for the big names of the likes of MP Motorsport, surely they have to have a bit of an advantage with the lengthy amount of data they will have coming into this weekend.
This is clearly why we have MP Motorsport and Campos Racing as both dominating teams here in Spa. It is pretty much what anyone would expect, considering they have data not just from the EUROCUP-3, but from all the series that they've raced here throughout the years. They have experience from Formula 4, EUROCUP-3, Formula 3, Formula 2, and all of that, even though it's not necessarily data that's applicable to the car, it's information, and information you can always use it to analyze it and to draw some conclusions that help you when setting up the car. So definitely that is a very obvious case of, you know, bigger teams, bigger budgets, more resources, and making good use of them. So it's a shame because that means that maybe drivers from other teams don't have the possibility of actually fighting with them. But that also means that we have tons of cars at the front, which should be very, very closely aligned in the race, which is, I think, exciting.
Yeah, well, Alex, thank you very much for your time. And doesn't Alex's voice just make the stream so much better? We missed him in race 1, but we get to catch up with him in race 2, and I'm sure we'll hear from him later on as well. But as you could hear from Alex's microphone, the cars are started up and ready to circulate around the hidden hills of Spa-Francorchamps in the Ardennes Forest. If you didn't watch the race earlier on this morning, it did look dry at the start of the race, but rain soon hit, and that's where a spanner was thrown into the works, and everything was put up in the air. Quite literally, coming out of the air was rain down onto the circuit, and very, very quickly was it. In qualifying 2 this morning, though, it's Emerson Fittipaldi who puts himself on pole position. Colnaghi finds himself 1 row further forward than he did this morning. He'll start from 2nd on the grid. It was 4th for this morning, but a brilliant jump off the line saw him find P2 heading into turn 1. We'll see if he's able to gain a position off the line this time, though, and promote himself into the lead of the race. Ernesto Rivera, the driver who is going to be 3rd in the championship right now, in a nightmare race this morning. He has a lot to prove here in race 2 to show what pace he has and what he is really capable of putting down on this Spa-Francorchamps circuit. So keep an eye on the number 24, because I can already tell you that he is going to be hot and heavy, ready to put on a show there in his MP Motorsport colours. Valerio Renicella, he'll start from 4th position as well. 2nd in the championship for the moment. He's 30 points back from Matteo Colnaghi. So quite a big gap between the 2 Italian drivers up at the front end. Obviously both in equal machinery. And when we had our races around Italy, it was very clear to see that the Italian stallions were out on top. Matteo Colnaghi able to take the bump over his teammate though. Jesse Carrasquedo, he'll be starting a little bit further down on the 3rd row of the grid. Our race winner from this morning, he did finish it under red flag, so not the way he would have been hoping to win his race here in the EUROCUP-3 campaign. But 2nd race win of the season is a win nonetheless, and it's a nice tally of points to add to his total as he cuts down the gap to Ernesto Rivera, who dropped down to 4th in the championship. Obviously with his issues, Kasper Stuka jumped him for 3rd. So Jesse Carrasquedo starting a little bit further down, but can he put that pace to use this morning and carve his way through the field, hopefully getting himself a podium by the end of it? It's certainly possible with a multitude of overtaking opportunities around this circuit, as Alex was mentioned earlier. It's like night and day between the Assen circuit and Spa-Francorchamps. This track, a lot wider and a lot longer, being 7 kilometers long for these drivers. So just over 2 minutes a lap are we expecting from these EUROCUP-3 cars. But as they line up on the grid now, you can see the drivers weaving, just trying to get a final little bit of heat into the tyres before the race starts. As we get onto the grid now, we shall soon see the pace car round the final couple of corners, as well as the final cars as ourselves set and ready for racing action. There is the Red Bull Junior colours of Enzo Tarvinic working his way around the final corner now through the bus stop chicane. All eyes are on him. How many places will he be able to make, as he is very much out of position to what is usual? It was a podium this morning, last on the grid for this race, but green flag is flying at the back of the grid, and it's all eyes on the gantry. 5 lights are on, and we will abort the start once again. We had this morning. We had this same issue this morning as we had Macedo stall earlier on this one, but we'll go for one more formation lap. This time round, I don't think it was an issue with somebody stalling on the grid, more an issue with the gantry lights. Either way, we'll keep an eye on the starting, see if we can see there be any stranded cars down on the straight. It doesn't look like there's been an issue for any of the drivers, so my guess is that there was an issue with the starting gantry lights there, as obviously all 5 lights went on at the same time instead of the sequential 1 to 5 that we'd usually expect. Either way, it is one more formation lap for the drivers here, one more lap to ease their nerves, or quite the opposite, build the tension in the case of some drivers In the case of Fittipaldi, it's his first pole position of the season, and a very infamous and difficult circuit, and some white smoke popping out the back of one of the, what looked like one of the Palau machine coming through Eau Rouge and Radion. Was that Alde Felderman? I'll have to double check if that was an issue there for Alde Felderman. But either way, a little bit of white smoke puffing out the back of that Sparco Palau Motorsport machine. That's not what you want to be seeing here on what is going to be the formation lap. And we do have confirmation that it is another formation lap because of an issue with the starting gantry. As we suspected, all 5 lights went on at the same time. We do have confirmation that they are testing the sequential start light procedure right now to make sure that we are ready for racing action this time round. Another great piece of information from Alex Garcia, our trackside correspondent. So a big thank you to him for all of his work and information that he feeds us during the race. But in here for the race, with there being an extra formation lap, that does mean, unfortunately, that there is another 2 minutes taken off the race total. So what was going to be a 30-minute race plus lap is now cut down to 28 minutes plus 1 lap. So a little less time for the drivers to get themselves settled in order before the checkered flag. But even still, plenty for everyone at home and watching along to see what happens here. As drivers are now circulating round, we're going to throw down to Alex Garcia. He's got a little bit of information for us.
Yeah, exactly, Kai. That was just coming back to you to give you a little bit more details about those issues that we actually had on that aborted start. And it was basically what we were discussing behind the scenes. There was some problem with the light, the starting gantry, with the lights that came out all in one go instead of the usual procedure of lighting them one at a time, which they did test during that extra formation lap. Unfortunately, we'll have 2 less minutes of racing. Unfortunately, that it's happened twice today, even though it's for entirely different reasons. But we know that this is racing sometimes as well. Processes can fail. It doesn't matter if you're on a car or you're outside taking care of the drivers. Sometimes these things happen. But fortunately, that means that we still have 28 minutes ahead of us, and we have plenty of action stored in this fantastic circuit, SPA-FRANCORCHAMPS, which I think it has everything that we need to have some good fun, as I can hear and see all the drivers getting back to the grid and getting into the slots, and the race is just about to start.
Thank you very much, Alex. Lights are on the gantry now. 5 lights are on, and we are ready for racing action here. Emerson Fittipaldi doesn't get away from the grid. Oh, that's a nightmare there for the Brazilian as he doesn't get away from the line. He stalled the car, but Matteo Colnaghi, he gets the jump into what is going to be the first position heading into the first corner. But Emerson Fittipaldi, your first pole position, and he crumbles under the pressure, unfortunately, as he will tumble down the order and now have all the work that he did in qualifying to do again in this race as we cut through Eau Rouge and Radion. A couple drivers having to use the runoff as they make their way through, as we scramble for position here. Matteo Colnaghi with Carrasquedo applying a lot of pressure as we're nearly 4 wide as we make our way up the Eau Rouge and Radion complex, and Colnaghi loses a couple of positions. Smoke kicking up in the background. It's all kicking off here for the second race of EUROCUP-3 as all the drivers feel they have so much to prove right now, as Ernesto Rivera is out, yellow flagged out in the background, so one driver having some issues. We'll have to see who that is. That looks like one of the Palau Motorsport machines. We'll have to see who's dropped down the order, but yellow flags are out for that. Ernesto Rivera, a brilliant start for him, but Carrasquedo managing to cut through as well. Kai Diriani making up a few positions. Dust in the background as we go through. Oh, and that is the reason why we're off. That is going to be the MP Motorsport machine. Who is that that's went into the wall? We'll have to double check the driver that's went off. Safety car is out. But could you have predicted a more chaotic start here to this second race here at Spa-Francorchamps for the EuroCup-3? As getting out the car we finally get confirmation of who it is, and it's already been a nightmare weekend for the man in the Netherlands colours. As he tumbles down the order, it's Valerio Rinicella that finds the wall on the first lap of the race. Valerio Rinicella, who had that issue in the first race where he pitted for wet tyres when it wasn't needed, so he finished down in 22nd position. In this race, he finds the barrier on the first lap of the race. It'll be a very quiet and silent run back to the pit lane for Valerio Rinicella, as it will be a very solemn evening here and a nightmare day. Luck was not in his favour this weekend, but Valerio Rinicella retires from race 2. But oh my word, what a start that was. We had a stall off the line from Fittipaldi. He recovers to 17th position for the time being. Ernesto Rivera got a brilliant jump off the line. Matteo Konagi got himself into the lead initially, but with so much pressure in behind from Ernesto Rivera, Rivera was already challenging into the first corner. We saw him have a look down the inside of Matteo Konagi. He wasn't able to get the move done just there. But as we made our way out of the first few corners up through Eau Rouge and Radion, that's where it really started to change. We saw Konagi get a bad exit out of Eau Rouge and Radion and heading into Le Com. That's where we saw us go nearly 4 wide with all cars wanting to get involved. It seemed like everybody wanted to be at the front of this pack. And with a safety car being out, you don't blame them at all, because track position is king here at Spa. And we're just looking at the wall of MP Motorsport and a lot of very confused faces there, and I don't blame them at all. I'm sure there'll be one on the face of Valerio Rinicella as well, as he unfortunately retires from the race. An incident on the first lap. We didn't quite catch what happened there to Valerio Rinicella, but he tumbled down the order, and it looks like Andreas Cardenas has also pulled into the pit lane. Is there an issue there for Andreas Cardenas? As Cardenas has dropped to the bottom of the order. That's 2 MP Motorsport cars with issues on the first lap of the race. From what was a dream out in Assen, it was their home race in their home colours. The national colour of the Netherlands dominated last time out in Assen. But here in Spa-Francorchamps, it all changes. It's just a little trip over the border, but it seems like a completely different game for the MP Motorsport team as they find themselves with 2 cars down at the bottom of the order. As we know, in multiple racing series, it is a David and Goliath situation. Goliath always falls at some point. The Titan can't always rule, as 2 big names from the championship tumble down the order to the bottom. And one of the best back teams with some of the best data around this circuit finds themselves 2 cars short, just 1 lap into the race. Heartbreak for MP Motorsport, heartbreak for Valerio Rinicella, and Andreas Cardenas follows along. The number 55 and the number 33 find themselves down at the bottom, but up at the top, we mentioned them as the other big team in the championship. Campos Racing find themselves with a car in the lead of Ernesto Rivera. Rivera, capitalizing on the opportunities in front of him, did a great job to avoid Fittipaldi off the line and took advantage of the cars around him, finding himself now in the lead of this race. Ernesto Rivera, as we mentioned, was leading the championship at one point. He was actually leading the championship going into Assen. But with issues out in Assen, that's where he found himself falling down the order to 4th in the championship right now. 59 points off the championship lead. But is this redemption day for Ernesto Rivera, as he can recuperate as many points as possible, trying to get one over on his competition? As Carrasquedo, it looks like Carrasquedo is showing up as the top driver on your timing screens. The timing screen seems to be a little bit different to mine. So I'll have to get confirmation on if there is an issue there. On your timing screen, it is showing Alexander Abgazava as second. Mine is showing as Carrasquedo. But as we go through, that does not look like it's going to be Alexander Abgazava in second. That does look like it's Jesse Carrasquedo's Griffin core machine. But we do have notes from the stewards that the incident at turn 6 involving car 55 of Valerio Rinichella will be investigated after the session. So maybe not such an innocent mistake there from Rinichella. Maybe he was helped round just a little bit. So as the drivers make their way around the circuit right now, 20 minutes is left on the clock. 8 minutes has been cut down from the racing action so far. So as we watch the drivers making their way through right now, we make our way around this 7-kilometer circuit. It's already not the fastest of lap times for these drivers. It's on average about a 2-minute 13 lap time, which we saw the quickest drivers completing in qualifying earlier on today. A 3-minute 48 is what we see underneath this safety car right here. Around the circuit we go. Ernesto Rivera, just keep an eye on him, the Mexican driver in the Campos racing machine. Obviously a Red Bull Junior team driver. He joined the Red Bull Junior team in September 2024. And he seems to be a very good signing for them indeed, as he's proving his talents time and time again out in front of this pack right now. The safety car right in front, still with the lights on the safety car right now. But we'll have to wait and see when the safety car does get let go and we can resume racing action once again. For the time being, though, the drivers will just be circulating and I'm sure wondering when this race will get going again. There in the pit lane is an issue for one of the Sparco Palau Motorsport drivers. That looks like it's going to be Zach Scalaire. The number 6 of Zach Scalaire has pulled into the pit lane. I wonder what the issue is there, as there is a multitude of team members crowded around that car. So clearly some sort of issue as we take off the engine cover. Maybe a component issue there to do with the drivetrain. So Zach Scalaire held in the pit lane for the time being. Safety car is let go, which does mean that we're getting ready for racing action once again. So as the drivers will
I can see, Kai, that I was going to say, Kai, so I'm seeing that the team is working on the rear suspension from what I can get to see from my position. So there might be something related to that, but I'm not 100% sure, of course. But that's what we can see from our position.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alex, for the update there. But racing has resumed back out on the circuit as we're keeping an eye on up front on what is going to be our championship, not championship leader, our race leader right now. Ernesto Rivera seemed to get a great jump out of the final corner. And as usual, Alex Garcia giving us the latest from down on the ground as well. Keeping an eye on what is going on in the pit lane with Zach Scalaire having a few issues. But on track, racing has resumed once again. Defensive here from Rivera. He goes right, he goes left. He weaves once again. Stewards might be a little bit touchy about that one, but he's going to have to defend to the outside. Push to pass is available. Carrasquedo's going to try it, and he's off the track. Carrasquedo having to take avoiding action and overtaking off the circuit. I'm sure Ernesto Rivera will not be too pleased about that one, as Carrasquedo finding himself off the circuit. I'm sure he will argue that the number 24 pushed him off the track and didn't leave him any room. Either way, Carrasquedo made that overtake off the circuit, so I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the team telling him to give the position back. But Ernesto Rivera momentarily dropping down into second position. He put all the defensive efforts down onto the circuit and didn't leave anything else within his reserves. But Carrasquedo, he outsmarted the mastermind that was in the lead, and he found himself on the outside line. Push to pass was available, and it seems that he utilized it to himself. As you know, these drivers do get 60 seconds of push to pass to use in bursts across this race. And Jesse Carrasquedo, our winner from race 1, seems to be a contender for race 2 as well. Can he do the double for the Griffin Core Campos Racing? He's definitely going to try his best, is the number 27, Ernesto Rivera. Will have to try his best down the inside. Yes, he goes. Carrasquedo gave the position back, but did he lose too much time? No, he didn't. He just shuts the door in the face of Matteo Colnaghi. Colnaghi had a look to that inside line. He thought he might have had an opportunity to get that second position back, but Jesse Carrasquedo, he chooses a smart option in the background. Let's watch this one as well. Alex Abkazava, he locks up into turn 1, and it's a smooth move down the inside from James Agozzi as he manages to sneak to the apex of turn 1 and makes his way past the KCL MP Motorsport machine of Alex Abkazava. Abkazava maybe felt the pressure a little bit under braking there as he locked up his front left. And we saw him have to crumble under that pressure, weaving left and right once again. Ernesto Rivera, you have to be careful with that one, but Jesse Carrasquedo, he's gonna try it again. Can he make it work this time? They bang wheels once again. Jesse Carrasquedo, he tries it and he finds himself off the circuit again, making the same move. Now, surely he'll have to give that back once again. Rivera looks to the inside. Carrasquedo says, no, I'll shut the door in your face once again. But Carrasquedo, once again, finds himself in the same position as he did last lap. You'll have to give the position back, and yes, he does, as we see Rivera sneak through. Colnaghi isn't able to follow through this time round, but he's got James Agozzi hot on his heels, and Spa-Francorchamps, the sun is out, it's heating up the circuit, and it's heating up the action as well. Some unbelievable racing right now out in front with Ernesto Rivera and Jesse Carrasquedo trading blows corner after corner, lap after lap. Oh, and that's a big pile of smoke next to the barrier. Is that one driver off in the background? We'll have to have a look. See if there's a stranded car behind that barrier there. It looks like Lucas Moreno has lost a couple of positions. So was that a momentary off there for Luciano Moreno? Oh, no, it looks like Isaac Barashi has dropped down to the back of the pack. So, Isaac Barashi down the order, and we do have word that Zach Scalaire is out of the car, and the team is still trying to work on it as well. So we'll keep you up to date with that situation. Alex Garcia down on the ground giving us those updates as we're focused on the action right now. In the background, weaving left, weaving right, trying to get that place back is Alex Abkazava, as he seems pretty desperate to get one back over on James Agozzi, but Zach Scalaire, a nightmare for him. Up through Eau Rouge and Radion we go at the front of the pack. 13 minutes of racing action, and this has just been unbelievable. With some of the best racing we've seen all season. They're gonna go for it again. Jesse, you better be careful on that outside. He squeezes to the inside this time, and he'll get it done with no worries. No need to take to the runoff this time round, as Jesse Carrasquedo finds himself in the lead of the race this time round without having to make an illegal overtake. Ernesto Rivera this time won't be given a handout. He will have to make the move, stick himself on the circuit. Let's get a replay here of that move. Ernesto Rivera committed to that inside line early, but Jesse Carrasquedo, a brilliant run out of Eau Rouge and Radion. He squeezed Rivera all the way to that inside line to the point where Rivera had no choice but to back out of that overtake. And Jesse Carrasquedo says, thank you very much. I will take this first position, and it is now my time to run away from the rest of the pack. And that's exactly what he's planning to do. Look at the gap he's already built back to Ernesto Rivera's Jesse Carrasquedo, as he's putting purple sectors down already. A purple sector 2 for Jesse Carrasquedo just solidifies that first position, which he's just been able to pick up. Now, can he hold on to it for the rest of the race? That's going to be a tall order. Through we go now towards the bus stop chicane. Up at the front end, Jesse Carrasquedo still doing everything he can to hold on to this position, as some brilliant racing has been going on. We'll have to keep an eye on this battle at the front end because it just seems to be electrifying. James Zagotzi momentarily seemed like he had the pace to catch on to this top 3. Now he seems to be on the back burner and on the back foot right now. Does James Zagotzi with plenty of pressure coming in from Alex Abgazava and Maciej Gladish. In the background, we're going to see an overtake here from the MP Motorsport machine. That looks like that was going to be the number 33 of Andreas Cardenas. So Cardenas makes a move there on Castillo. And as we watch up the hill here, is that Alex Abgazava that's found his way back past James Zagotzi? No, it's not. It's actually Maciej Gladish that's made his way past Alexander Abgazava. Side by side we go in the mid-pack once again. That's going to be an easy move there for the Red Bull Junior driver. Jules Caranta just made a move on Francisco Macedo. So Macedo, who had issues in the first race, is just tumbling down the order a little bit more with drivers finding their way through. An issue out in front. You can't have many more of those as he kicks up a little bit of gravel. Jesse Carrasquedo just dips a wheel in the gravel trap, and that will have lost him a couple of attempts back to Ernesto Rivera. Carrasquedo, the last thing he needs to be doing is driving in his mirrors at the moment. He just needs to focus on the track out in front of him. But Ernesto Rivera, he will be sat in his cockpit praying for more mistakes like that from the Griffin Core driver in front. As we have a look in the pit lane, we have another word and another update from the pit lane from Alex Garcia. We have word that Isaac Barashi is in the pits, and it looks like it's going to be Scalera getting back into the cockpit of the car. So although he got out of the car earlier on and the team was still working on that engine component, we can see Zach Scalera making his way back into the cockpit. Are the team going to send him back out onto the circuit and just treat this race as a practice session? We've seen it before in other series, so I wouldn't be too surprised if we do see it here from Zach Scalera, as the team seem pretty set to getting him back out on the circuit. A big lock up there from one of the Red Bull Junior drivers. I was looking at the pit lane on my left-hand side. I didn't quite catch who that was that made the mistake down into turn 1. But either way, a big puff of smoke showing as we made our way down into La Source. Up at the front end here, we are watching these cars and weaving down the straight once again, trying to get rid of that slipstream. I'm not sure the stewards will be too happy about that one, but in the background, a couple of moves being made. Stuka, Berry, and Oscar Werther are all going at it. A side by side. Oh, and off the track we see Enzo Tarvinichko as he was going to war with Alfagali. Alfagali going to blows with Enzo Tarvinichko. As we can see, the number 4 there making a move. So Enzo Tarvinichko having a nice little battle there out on the circuit. More gravel being kicked up, and that's the last thing you want to see as you're making your way into one of the fastest sections on the circuit through Puon. You have to be very confident and very connected, very committed as a driver. Zach Scalera, from what looked like it was going to be him getting back out on the circuit, his helmet is now off, and unfortunately, it looks like the Palau Motorsport team could just not get that car to work. So an unfortunate retirement there for Zach Scalera, and what looks like our second official retirement of the race. Obviously, Isaac Barashi is still in the pit lane, unsure what's going on there with the other Palau Motorsport machine. We'll have to see if we can get word from Alex Garcia, but this battle's still raging on as Tarvinichko is still going elbows out around this circuit. Down towards the bus stop chicane we go. It looks like we're going to go side by side, but back into single file before we get to the first apex. So the driver's thinking better of it. They don't want to risk anything just yet. In the background once again, that looks like that's going to be a move. Is that Jules Caranta getting involved in a little bit of a battle? Yes, it is, as he makes a move down the inside. So Jules Caranta picking up a position. These Red Bull Junior drivers all seemingly very feisty around this SPA-FRANCORCHAMPS circuit, as it's been elbows out from every single one of the drivers. But out in front, where has this came from? Ernesto Rivera, he's got it back. Of course he has. Carrasquedo's back on the inside. He's going to try it, but thinks better of it. He backs out of it at the apex. Ernesto Rivera, he picks up this race lead that he rightfully feels is his. But Jesse Carrasquedo, all of the work that he put out on the table is undone once again, as the number 27 will try his best to find himself back on that top step of the podium. He's already had one race win this weekend, but there's never such a thing as being too greedy as a racing driver. Of course he's going to want to win both races this weekend and do the double. Oh no, that's another car off the circuit there. Who is that that's went off? That looks like that's going to be another one of the Palau Motorsport cars, is it? Yes, it is. That's going to be the number 5 of Luciano Moreno. So Moreno's now off the circuit. Palau Motorsport, we were talking about the disasters of MP Motorsport, but Palau Motorsport not having the weekend they would have been hoping for at all, as that's 3 drivers now out of the race. That's Zach Scalaire, Isaac Barashi, and Luciano Moreno. Is that going to be means for a safety car? It did seem that he was just able to pull over where an emergency exit was. So maybe not too much of an issue there. As we see, oh, there was a big mistake there, and it's going to be a sweep around the outside. That seems like that's going to be a pretty easy move there for the MP Motorsport car of Maciej Gladic, as James Agozzi is just struggling. He's going to try and get them both. He dives down the inside into the source. There's contact there between Stuka and Gladic, and off the road there is that Kasper Stuka that's went off. There's yellow flags. That's the number 7. No, it's not. The number 7 is off the circuit, and Maciej Gladic is off the road and out of the race after contact down at turn 1. Oh, and there is issues. We were talking about the contact that he had earlier on, and that is going to be the number 37 Griffin Core, which is out of the race as well. Kasper Stuka, we saw him come to blows down at turn 1. James Agozzi, brave on the brakes as he dives down the inside of both. Kasper Stuka, oh, just clattering into the rear end of the MP Motorsport machine of Alex Abkazava. So Alexander Abkazava, unfortunately, coming to blows. And oh, it seems in a little bit of distress there. That's not what you want to be seeing at all. We'll pray and hope that Maciej Gladic is all right there. But clutching at the wrist, maybe in a little bit of pain. Didn't quite catch what happened there for Gladic. But all thoughts are with Gladic right now, hoping that he is okay. Safety car is out on the circuit with just 2 minutes and 55 seconds on the clock and 2 cars stranded out on the circuit. You might call me crazy for this, but this race could possibly finish under safety car. And for what race 1 lacked in action, it made up for in the track conditions, but this race has been completely dry, and it seemed to be gloves off in this race indeed, as every single driver has been involved in some brilliant action out on track. Unfortunately, a little bit too much for some of them, but Alex Garcia is standing by and waiting to catch us up with the latest under this very late safety car period.
Yes, Kai, it is very unfortunate that we have a very late safety car. I know that some people in the audience were saying, no, safety car, please. Well, that was a bit unfortunate. Very, very gutsy move by James Agozzi there. But it is so unfortunate that that ended the way it did, because we had that clash with Maciej Gladic, and the way he was touching his wrist, that didn't look very good. I do hope that I'm wrong, but you know very well, Kai, that when you have a crash when you're turning the wheel, and La Source, you are turning the wheel 180 degrees pretty much. Any clash is going to jerk the wheel, and if you don't let go, that can break a wrist. So I really, really hope I'm wrong, but that could be a possibility.
Yeah, nasty scenes to see, but as you mentioned, hopes and prayers are with Maciej Gladic, and hopefully he recovers from that incident very quickly. But Alex, 2 minutes is remaining. Sorry, not even 2 minutes. 1 minute is remaining on the clock, and safety car has just came out of the pit lane. The drivers are just about to catch up to it. It looks like this race is going to finish the way that it is.
I think so. We have, of course, that possibility if they slow down a little bit. Remember that there's always that extra lap after the clock gets to 0, but that means that they need to get that safety car out on this lap, and that's not really looking very likely. We can always hope. But if we get through the line and the safety car is still there, that means it's game over for today.
Yeah, completely agree there. Obviously, we had 2 cars stranded. We had Kasper Stuka and Maciej Glady stranded after that race. It was very, very unfortunate to see. Alex, thank you very much for your inputs once again. And there is a lot of positives to come from this race, though, as Ernesto Rivera and Jesse Carrasquedo had some of the greatest racing that we've seen all season. I think it's very fair to say. And in those closing stages, if you hadn't noticed it already, Mateo Carnaghi, he always finds a way. He sneaks himself up into 2nd position, which means that Jesse Carrasquedo drops down onto the final step of the podium if we don't get racing once again. But Ernesto Rivera, he is showing his racing colours are true and showing why he is backed by the Red Bull Junior team, as he puts some great defensive manoeuvres on display, some great offensive maneuvers on display, and that's exactly what you want to see. The complete package from a driver. And Ernesto Rivera, I think it's fair to say, a very deserved winner from this race if it finishes the way that it is. But Mateo Carnaghi, the way that it finishes, he'll pick up another 18 positions toward 18 positions, sorry, not 18 positions, but it will be 18 points towards his championship campaign. And with Valerio Rinicella, unfortunately, non-scoring. Once again, it was a retirement from an incident on the first lap. He will not score any points, meaning that Mateo Carnaghi will now lead the championship by over 48 points, which is a huge points difference heading into our final 2 rounds of the EUROCUP-3 championship. But as we make our way through the final few sections, all eyes are on the safety car. Will the lights go off? If it is, it will be a 1-lap dash to the line. If the lights are still on, this will be the way that it finishes. We'll just wait till the camera pans to the safety car. And if I am correct, and I very much like to say this, that the safety car lights are off. It's a 1-lap dash to the finish line, and we will see not quite an easy finish that Ernesto Rivera would have been hoping for, as he will have our championship leader, Mateo Carnaghi, breathing down his neck. Formula One, Abu Dhabi 2021, eat your heart out, because EUROCUP-3 here is going to contend with that ending to the race. Can Rivera hold on to it? Can Carnaghi get the race win? Can Carrasquedo put a challenge in as well? It's all up for grabs going into this final lap, and we are pumped to see what happens here. Ernesto Rivera stopping the pack to a crawl, but his foot to the floor, and he gets back up to racing speed. But Carnaghi, he responds well. Ernesto Rivera, he'll take us to the line for 1 more lap of racing action. Ernesto Rivera, can he hold on to it? He's got a nice little bit of a gap back to Mateo Carnaghi in the background. We see some racing already as we cross the line. That's going to be a move down the inside. That looks like that's going to be one of the Red Bull Junior drivers, possibly Jules Caranta, making a move on Oscar Wirtz there, down into La Source, into turn 1. It's a mad last lap dash, which these drivers are faced with right now as we go through Eau Rouge and Raidillon side by side. You don't see that very often, but it's definitely going to work out in the favor of the Red Bull Junior driver of Enzo Tarvanichko as he makes his way past Alexander Abkazava, weaving left and right, desperate to hold on to this lead is Ernesto Rivera. In the background, down the inside, here comes Jesse Carrasquedo to try and regain the position from James Agotti. Agotti's going to have to try and defend that one, but was he able to? No, he wasn't. Agotti drops down in a 4th position. Carrasquedo back up into 3rd. Now he has just half a lap to chase back onto the top 2 if he wants to gain himself any more positions. It's not going to be easy to do, but it's definitely possible here at the circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. On this final lap of the race, there's already so much which has happened. Left, right, here we go. James Zagotzi is under more pressure now from Enzo Tarvinichko as Tarvinichko tries to get a run in the order. Remember, Tarvinichko had both of his lap times deleted in qualifying 2 as he started down in last position on the grid. And now he finds himself up in 5th position. This is a brilliant race from the rookie driver in the number 4 car. The Red Bull Junior colours being put to order. He's not able to get past James Zagotzi just yet, but he has one more place to do so, and all eyes are on these two. Into the bus stop chicane we go. Out in front, it's already sorted. Ernesto Rivera has the race win, but here we go. Here is Enzo Tarvinichko. James Zagotzi on the inside. Can he hold on to it as we make our way through around the outside? You don't see this very option as he's going to try it as well. Enzo Tarvinichko, can he get the move done on the last lap? Yes, he can. James, oh, and he goes off though in the bus stop chicane on the final moment. Over the final chicane goes Enzo Tarvinichko, and James Zagotzi, he'll finish in behind him. But the question is, will Enzo Tarvinichko hold on to that position as he went over the apex of the final bus stop chicane? And James Zagotzi, I'm sure, will be full of protests over the radio and to the stewards as well, trying to say that he deserves that position on the grid. The way that it finishes, Enzo Tarvinichko will finish in 4th on the circuit, but a misjudgment in braking into the final bus stop chicane found him over the bus stop chicane, over the second apex, and unfortunately, some will argue that he gained an unfair advantage. James Zagotzi just falling short in those final moments, as not very often do you see so much bravery to make a move around the outside of Blanchimont. Enzo Tarvinichko, what were you thinking going for a move around the outside of Blanchimont? He made it stick though. And that just showed the determination and the racing spirit that that man carries in his chest. He wore his heart on his sleeve when he went for the overtake. Yes, he may have made a small mistake which cost him in the end, but it's his Red Bull Junior counterpart, Ernesto Rivera, who was able to hold on to the race win. It wasn't easy at all. He had one lap to do it, but he commanded the field and kept a heavy head on his shoulders and kept it calm and collected. He'll celebrate with his team as the number 24 finds himself in the number 1 spot, as Ernesto Rivera is on top once again. He's had 2 wins this season. Let's make it 3. Matteo Conaghi will not much he could have done to try and get himself into the lead of the race. He tried it as we made our way up through Eau Rouge and Radion, but unfortunately just wasn't able to get the move done. And Ernesto Rivera, a very deserved win indeed. Hats off to Jesse Carrasquedo, and you love to see the sportsmanship between the two of them. Jesse Carrasquedo and Ernesto Rivera having an unbelievable battle through the first half of the race. And it's great to see that those two competitors are able to smile about it at the end of the race and shake each other's hands, as that was a battle to be proud of. Ernesto Rivera, inevitably the one that comes out on top though, with Matteo Conaghi sneaking his way into 2nd position in the closing stages, and Jesse Carrasquedo in 3rd. But the driver that will be on everyone's minds right now, and I'm sure on the minds of the stewards, we'll have to see if that incident gets noted or if that overtake gets noted. But Enzo Tarvinichko, it's fair to say that he had the overtake done at the apex, at the first apex, sorry, of the bus stop chicane. But at the second apex, he didn't find himself meeting the apex. He found himself going over the top of it. And I'm sure we will see some protests from James Zagotzi and Palau Motorsport to say that Enzo Tarvinichko went over the apex and gained an unfair advantage. But Only time will tell, when we'll have to wait and see if that is the order. Either way, still brilliant racing action. And Enzo Tarvinichko, I think it's fair to say, is my driver of the day, as what a race that was from him. From the 14th row of the grid in 28th position, he finds himself crossing the line in 4th. 14 positions gained from Enzo Tarvinichko. But down in the scrutineering area, Alex Garcia is down there for a quick interview with our race leader. First up is going to be Jesse Carrasquedo.
Ernesto Rivera finally back on the top step of the podium. That was a pretty intense race, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a super intense race, fighting a lot with Jesse. He pushed me a lot. I pushed him a lot. At the end, yeah, I came victorious, but yeah, a lot of fight.
How important is it for you to get back on the good track after a few races which have been pretty difficult for you?
Yeah, especially Assen. Race 1 this morning, I was struggling a lot, and it feels super good to come back with a good result.
And that fight with Jesse Carrasquedo, as you said, that was pretty tense. But I could see that you were talking to each other right now and pretty chill, and you were mostly enjoying that fight, weren't you?
Yeah, we're very good friends of the track. And yeah, of course we enjoyed the fight, but we were both a bit tense, I think.
And I saw you talking, I have to ask you about this, I saw you talking as well to Enzo, who I think you knew that he was starting super back from the grid, and he was pretty much almost backing you up in the race in 4th place at the end.
Yeah, that was super impressive from Enzo. I imagine he was starting almost last to finish 4th. Yeah, congrats to him as well.
And do you think that puts you back into potentially title fight if you have a good couple of last rounds? Because I know that Mattia is very far in the championship, but do you think you have an option?
Yeah, well, I have to have a very good end of the season to fight with him, but yeah, I'll keep pushing to win.
All right, Ernesto, enjoy the win for now, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Ernesto Rivera, what a race and what a fight, but more than anything, and I love to say that, what a way to celebrate a win by enjoying a fight with a very good friend, as he said, with Jesse Carrasquedo, with that 1-3 in the end. And did you see, Kai, did you see his face when we were talking about Enzo Tarvinichko? That was amazing, and he knew it. He was thinking, my word, how did my teammate go from the back of the grid to pretty much catching us up?
Yeah, an unbelievable race there, and what a race from Ernesto Rivera. I did say that was Jesse Carrasquedo. That is my mistake. That was not Jesse Carrasquedo. That was Ernesto Rivera. But it's easy to get them mixed up, especially when they had such a good battle out on the circuit. But as you mentioned his name, Enzo Tarvinichko, as I said on the commentary, my driver of the day, up 14 positions to 4th place. And I think it's fair to say, one of the bravest overtakes I've ever seen in motorsport around the outside of Blanchimont, Alex.
That was very, very impressive, very brave as well. We know that Enzo is probably one of the most daring drivers on the grid right now. And we know that maybe he's not always on the pace, maybe he's not always on that level of performance to fight for wins. But when he is, you can count on him to take some risks, to try to get that little bit of extra spice into the race. And today, that he made it count, and he recorded from really, really far away. I have to say, I'll admit it now, I can give back my 2-piece, since that was Ernesto Rivera's win and not Mattia Colnaghi. But I'll give you an extra one, because I wasn't expecting Enzo Tarvinichko to get that far into the position. I was thinking maybe he can get 1 point, 2 points, maybe 10th, 9th, 8th if the race is going well. But 4th place, that was just amazing.
No, indeed, I completely agree. We were saying before the race that it was going to be difficult for Enzo Tarvinichko to pick up any points in this race, and I think it's say that he heard our commentary and heard us speaking and said, you know what, I'll take it on my own shoulders and I'll prove you both wrong.
Because we love to see drivers taking those risks and showing us what motorsport can be at its best when drivers get a good showing, when they do things that are a little bit more special and things that maybe we were not necessarily expecting. And that's what motorsport is all about. When you just sit down, enjoy, watch it, and suddenly you're just thinking, I definitely did not expect that.
No, there was many of points in that race that I did not expect to be happening. James Garcia with one of the bravest moves down the inside, so late on the brakes, down the inside of 2 cars into La Source. You don't often see that, but able to pick up 2 positions, so you can't blame him for it at all. Sometimes you have to risk something as a racing driver, and especially in closing stages like that. But this time round, as we mentioned, Ernesto Rivera walks away with the victory. Matteo Carnaghi sneaks into 2nd position, and it is going to be in 3rd position, Jesse Carrasquedo, the driver which took home the race win this morning. He will take home another podium today in 3rd position, as we're currently just following the drivers up towards a podium. Maybe they went the wrong direction there, but Alex, if Spa is anything to go off, with just 2 more rounds remaining this season, we are in for a heater for the final 2 rounds of EUROCUP-3.
Oh, absolutely. I'm very, very sure that what we're going to see on the next 2 rounds, the last 2 rounds of the season, is going to be definitely exciting. And almost as if to do a little bit of a foreshadowing, because we're going back to Spain, I can give you a little bit of a curious bit of trivia, which is the top 5 drivers in this race. They all do speak very, very good Spanish, even though not all of them you would think that they do. But I'm counting James Garcia as well, and Enzo Tarban is called here, as well as Matteo Carnaghi, of course, being part Argentinian. So all of them do speak Spanish, so good language to bring into the next few rounds at Jerez and Barcelona.
And, you know, it's going to all lie on that race indeed. Matteo Carnaghi just extending his championship lead to over 48 points now. That is huge there for Carnaghi. We'll see a few replays here. And this was the battle that we've been talking about, Alex. It was Jesse Carrasquedo and Ernesto Rivera coming to blows multiple times there. At a few points, it seemed like Jesse Carrasquedo was getting a little bit restless, trying to get that move done there on Rivera, but that was the final overtake to secure himself into the race lead. It was definitely on the limits between the 2 drivers, but Alex, that's exactly what you want to see between them.
I think so, yes, and especially when you consider the background that they have, which is they're very, very good friends, you can know that they probably know both which buttons to push on each other, but also how far they can actually take it without crossing the line. So I would believe them, when I see them both being pretty happy about it, that there's not necessarily big drama to be had. Yes, there is. Some of the moves might be checked by the stewards if there's something a bit at the limit, but considering their team allegiances and their own friendship, I do not think that things should be taken too far in the end. But in the end of the day, that's what we like to see. Drivers fighting it out, enjoying, having fun, and finishing on the podium because they both deserved it.
Yeah, 100%. And as we're watching the podium celebrations right now, you can just see the respect between all of the drivers as Jesse Carrasquedo, Matteo Carnaghi, and our race winner of Ernesto Rivera find themselves on the podium now as we get ready for the national anthem. A very proud moment on the top step of the podium there from Ernesto Rivera as he represents his Red Bull Junior colours, and the trophies will now be handed out. It's going to be first the team trophy to the representative from Campos Racing as they loft the trophy up high above their heads and very proudly do so. And once again, handshakes all along as we hand out the trophy to third position in this race, Jesse Carrasquedo. For moments it was looking like he was going to win the race, but third is the best that he can do. Matteo Carnaghi just extends his championship lead in second position with an extra 18 points to go towards his tally. But the driver that takes home the top step of the podium and takes home the #1 trophy, it's going to be Ernesto Rivera for his third win of the season. He'll step up onto the top step, and so will both the other drivers, as we'll get a few pictures of the drivers on the podium, as I'm sure the celebrations will very, very shortly commence. The photos are now taken, and you'll be able to tell when the celebrations are about to commence, when the cameras will run out of the way as quickly as possible with the bottles of sparkling wine for these drivers. So, unfortunately, we weren't able to have a podium this morning, but we'll make up for it in the second race as celebrations are now underway for our top three here, as the drivers will make the most of the moment, and you don't blame them at all, as Ernesto Rivera and Jose Carrasquedo, the two Mexican drivers on the podium, will shower each other with their celebrations. And what a race that was indeed. And a race that I'm sure we have plenty of highlights. We have a short run here. Emerson Fittipaldi, unfortunately, not able to get off the line like he would have been hoping for. But off the bat, it was Matteo Carnaghi who found himself in the lead of the race. That was Valerio Rinicella, who unfortunately crashed out of the race on the first lap. Found himself in the pit lane, and this is where things started to spice up. Jose Carrasquedo going side by side with Ernesto Rivera, lap after lap after lap. Pressure started to build, mistakes were made, but in the end, it was Ernesto Rivera who found himself coming out on top, and that was the other Red Bull Junior car, which we couldn't take our eyes off. That was Enzo Tarvinichko making his way through the field, and it was a retirement for Kasper Stuka after a small contact with the back end of Alex Abkazava found himself retiring from the race. But for what was an action-packed race 2 of the EUROCUP-3 race at SPA-FRANCORCHAMPS, it will very much tell the tale of what we have in store for the final 2 rounds of the EUROCUP-3 campaign. Can anyone topple the order and take over Matteo Carnaghi's reign? Well, we'll have to wait and see. For next time out in Jerez, we go back to our Spanish origins for round 7 of the EUROCUP-3 campaign.